Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be talking about the physiology of hearing. It is rightly said, an ear is not an ear if it cannot hear. So we know that the two main functions of the ear, they are hearing and equilibrium. Now in this particular video, I'll be talking about only the hearing function of the ear. So before we actually see how we hear, something about the organ of Corti. Now, this is a detailed pictorial representation of the structure of the organ of Corti. And here we can see that this green part, this is the scala media of the cochlea or the cochlear duct, which is a part of membranous labyrinth. So in this scala media, this organ is situated, which is the sense organ of hearing. This is organ of Corti. In organ of Corti, there are various cells. So here, these are the outer hair cells, which are more in number, and then there are the inner hair cells which are less in number. Then between these two hair cells there is a space or tunnel which is called tunnel of Corti, and this tunnel, it has cotylymph in it. So in scala media there is endolymph, in scala vestibuli and tympani it is perilymph, but in tunnel of Corti there is cotylymph. Now here we can see that this is a tectorial membrane. It is a gelatinous membrane which is in contact with the cilia of the hair cells. So the shearing force between the tectorial membrane and the cilia, it causes the generation of the electric potential. So we'll see details again in the subsequent slides. Then in organ of Corti, there are also some supporting cells like Dieter cells and cells of Hensen. Now, exact function is not known, but again they support the main hearing cells, that is outer hair cells. Then, as I told you, tectorial membrane, it is made up of a gelatinous matrix and it provides stimulus to the hair cells because of the contact of tectorial membrane with the cilia of the hair cells. We saw two types of hair cells, outer hair cells and inner hair cells. There are some differences between the two. Outer hair cells, they are arranged in 3 to 4 rows, while inner hair cell is arranged only in a single row. Hence, they are more in number, outer hair cells. So around 12,000 uh, uh, outer hair cells are present, but inner hair cells, they are only around 3,500. The function of the outer hair cells, that is, they are mainly efferent in nature, while the inner hair cells, they are efferent in nature. Then the shape, outer hair cells, they are cylindrical in shape, while inner hair cells, they are flask shaped. The outer hair cells, they develop late, that is phylogenetically they are new, while the inner hair cells, they develop earlier. The function of the outer hair cells is to moderate the inner hair cell function, while inner hair cells are primarily responsible for the transmission of the auditory stimuli. Now, since the outer hair cells, they are new, they are easily damaged by the drugs like ototoxic drugs. But the inner hair cells, they are more resistant to the noise as well as ototoxic injury. So here we can see the detailed structure of the hair cells. So here we can see that these are cylindrical shaped outer hair cells. Here we can see, and these are flask shaped, that is inner hair cells. Then we see that there are cilia present over these cells. Out of these cilia, the outermost cilia, it is the longest, which is called kinocilium, and the other small cilia, they are known as stereocilia. These cilia are in contact with this gelatinous matrix membrane, that is tectorial membrane, and the shearing force between this membrane and this cilia, it causes generation of the electric potential. So now we move on to the mechanism of hearing. Now mechanism of hearing can be broadly divided into three parts. First is the conductive apparatus, that is the conduction of sound from the outer environment up till the inner ear, which is the mechanical conduction of sound. Then the sensory system of cochlea, where the mechanical energy it is converted into electrical impulse. And finally the neural pathway, that is conduction of the electrical impulse to the brain from the inner ear to the brain, that is the neural pathway. So we'll see the details of each apparatus one by one. So first is the conductive apparatus. Now, whenever a sound is uh, travels through the pinna, external ear and middle ear, some of the energy of the sound is lost. So the function of the middle ear is to convert the sound of greater amplitude of and lesser force to that of lesser amplitude but greater force. And this is called the impedance matching mechanism of the middle ear. So this impedance matching is done by different methods. So first is the lever action of the ossicles. So if we see that the long process of the handle of Malleus, it is around 1.3 times more than the long process of the incus. That is handle of Malleus. The length of the handle of Malleus is around 1.3 times more the length of the long process of the incus. So this gives an mechanical advantage of 1.3 is to 1. Then hydraulic action of the tympanic membrane, that is the tympanic membrane vibrates. So if we see the overall area of the tympanic membrane, it is around 90 square millimeter, but around 55% of the tympanic membrane vibrates, and it vibrates more at the periphery. So the effective vibratory area comes to around 45 to 55 square millimeters. And the area surface, so this surface area of the tympanic membrane and the stapes footplate, the surface area of the stapes footplate, that ratio is around 14 is to 1. So this is called hydraulic action of the tympanic membrane. So if we multiply these two ratios, it gives an overall mechanical advantage of the 18, that is 18 is to 1. And curved membrane effect, I told you that movement of the tympanic membrane, they are more at periphery. So all these things combine to give the mechanical advantage of around 18 is to 1. So here we can see that this the area of the tympanic membrane to the area of the stapes footplate, this ratio is around 21 is to 1. But as I told you that not whole of the tympanic membrane vibrates, only the peripheral part of the of this tympanic membrane vibrates because of the curved membrane effect. And so this 21 is to 1, it comes down to 14 is to 1. Then this ratio of lever action of the ossicles, that is ratio of the handle of Malleus to the long process of incus, it is around 1.3 is to 1. So if we multiply 1.3 to not 21 but 14 is to 1. So it gives an overall advantage of around 18 is to 1. So this is the impedance matching mechanism of the middle ear. Now second point in the conductive apparatus is the phase difference between the oval window and the round window. That is, we know that the sound waves are waves of compression and rarefaction. So when the oval window receives a wave of compression, the round window should be in the opposite phase, that is the phase of rarefaction. So whenever a sound hits the tympanic membrane, the ossicles vibrate, and preferentially the sound is transmitted through the oval window. So when oval window has a wave of compression, the round window should be in the wave of rarefaction. If both windows are at similar waves, then they will nullify the effect of each other, and there will be no movement of the inner ear fluids, and there will be no generation of the electrical impulse. So this phase difference between these two windows is important to hear the sound. Then natural resonance of the external and the middle ear. Now every part of the ear has its natural resonating frequency in which it vibrates the maximum. So it is because of the inherent anatomical and physiological properties of the external and the middle ear which allow the certain frequencies of the sound to pass more easily to the inner ear due to their natural resonance. So the impedance matching mechanism, the phase difference between the oval window and the round window, and the natural resonance of the parts of the external and the middle ear, all these three are very important for the conductive apparatus of hearing. So we see that I have described the conductive apparatus of the ear. Now we move on to the next part of hearing, that is sensory apparatus. So we know, we have seen the details of the organ of Corti. Now these are the hair cells and this is the tectorial membrane. So the movement of the tectorial membrane towards the kinocilia, that is the longest cilia of the hair cell. So if the movement is towards the kinocilia, it will lead to the depolarization. It will lead to the generation of the electrical impulse, that is depolarize, it will depolarize the cells and it will lead to the generation of the electrical impulse. While the movement of the cilia away from the kinocilia in the opposite direction, it develops repolarization potential, that is it stops generating the potential. So the shearing force between the cilia and the tectorial membrane is important for um, conversion of the mechanical energy into generation of an electrical impulse. So this is again, we see these are the coils of cochlea, and as can be seen here that higher frequencies, they are represented at the base of the cochlea, and as we move towards the apex, the frequency decreases, that is lower frequencies, they are represented at the apex of the cochlea, as can be seen in this figure also. So at the base we can see that higher frequencies are there, then in the mid part of the cochlea there are medium frequencies, and finally at the apex we see that lower frequencies are represented. Now finally, so we have seen that how sound was, we saw the conductive apparatus of the sound, then we saw how that mechanical energy converted into electrical energy in the cochlea, that is sensory apparatus, and finally we see the neural system, that is once that impulse is generated, how that impulse travels to the brain. So the hair cells, they are innervated by the dendrites of the bipolar cells of the spiral ganglia, which are situated in the Rosenthal canal. Now axons of the bipolar cell, they form the cochlear division of the eighth nerve and end in the cochlear nuclei. So all the axons of these cells, they combine to form the eighth nerve, and this eighth nerve, it ends into the cochlear nuclei. So if we see the auditory pathway, it's a very famous mnemonic for remembering the auditory pathway, that is E. coli MA. Okay, this is the mnemonic. So from the eighth nerve, we saw that the impulse travels to the cochlear nuclei, then from there to the superior olivary complex, then lateral lemniscus, then inferior colliculus, then medial geniculate body, and finally the auditory cortex. Now this auditory cortex, it is situated in the superior temporal gyrus, which is the Brodmann's area number 41. And one important point to note here is that each ear is represented in both cerebral hemispheres. So I'll show you the figure to make this point more clear. But to remember the auditory cortex, we can remember like E. coli MA. This is a very famous mnemonic. So as I told you that both ears are represented in both hemispheres, cerebral hemisphere. So we can see here that as this is the auditory pathway of the left ear and this is of the right ear. So we can see that there are multiple areas or points of decussations of the signals. That is signal from one part of the auditory pathway. It is also it passes through the opposite pathway. So there are multiple levels of decussation. So each ear is represented in both cerebral hemispheres. Thank you.